Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for August 12th through the 18th. And this week there's a mix of renewals, ordeals. There's this mixture of cleansing and purification and even new insights, along with going through something, getting through something. And I see this week as we are moving over a threshold, we're crossing over an ideal, we're moving through something and past something. That's sort of the sense that I'm getting for this. So we have Mercury making its Cazimi, which is where it conjoins the sun at the same place in the zodiac, and we have Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus making a T-square, and the moon will actually come in this week to complete this T-square as well. So a lot of energy happening this week, as always. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so happy to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a psychological perspective. So we're also going to keep in mind, in addition to the things that I just named, that we are within the broader context this year of Jupiter square Saturn. And that aspect, Jupiter square Saturn, is a more long-term, overarching storyline that we're experiencing all year, 2024, and it will be exact next week. So we have been in it. There is this theme all year around expansion, Jupiter, and then contraction, Saturn. So the principle of wanting to explore and be enthusiastic and to bring something into being. And then also, how do we manage and take advantage of the containment and constrictions and limitations around that? How do we channel our exuberance, Jupiter, and our, I would even say too, we're talking about Jupiter in Gemini, which is a key feature of this week as well, with Mars making its conjunction to Jupiter. But we're talking about Jupiter in Gemini, which is about exploring all of the things, talking about all of the things, asking questions, and really not leaving anything unexplored. and then Saturn in Pisces, which is about navigating our relationship emotionally to boundaries, restrictions, responsibilities, our sense of duty or responsibility or commitment to the things that we feel are important to us. And so when Jupiter Saturn make this square this year, there is this navigation around how can we bring things into being that are important to us, and then what do we need to do in order to complete that over the long term. So that will be exact next week, but again, we've been feeling into it all year. Jupiter will retrograde this year, meaning that this Jupiter-Saturn square will be exact again in December. So we're really sort of sitting in this Jupiter-Saturn creative limitation soup over the whole year. Now, I'm really going into that because this week in particular, Mars in Gemini will make a conjunction with Jupiter in Gemini. And so Mars comes in and sort of, we can think of it as like Jupiter and Saturn have already been hanging out and talking and exchanging ideas. And then Mars comes in and really activates the conversation and brings it to a different topic or a different level, particularly around Mars themes, which are our physical ability to take action, our muscle, our enthusiasm, our passion, our comfort or discomfort with being direct, with being bold, with being an advocate. Mars is connected to boundaries in the way that we erect boundaries to protect ourselves as a defense system. And so this combination is about looking at how you are protecting yourself or others, how you are protecting your dreams, your visions, I think with this combination, there's also this theme around, there could be this theme around frustration or guilt or overwhelm, because these things kind of get mixed in when we're talking about Jupiter and Saturn as well. There could be this theme around wanting to do the right thing, wanting to uphold your morals or your principles, or feeling like maybe your morals or principles are betrayed in some way and what to do about that. Mars is so much about spontaneous action, and so there is this passion and this enthusiasm. What else did I want to say about this? There's kind of also this apex of themes around expansion and contraction, which is Jupiter and Saturn. And the way that I'm seeing this is that maybe there's something that you've been working on, or there's something that you've been trying to do or to move forward on, and then Mars may come in here to either highlight a movement forward, an enthusiasm, or maybe there's some, not a little even, maybe there is a sizable amount of frustration here. And I think that we can look at this and not say, oh, like I'm going to be frustrated this week and this is bad, though of course that might be your experience, and I think that's important to look at. And also that is information for us. So if frustration happens to come up this week, that is telling you something. That is telling you about something that is not quite right for you, that something either is in need of change, or there is a need or a desire that's not being met or fulfilled, or there is a need to take action or redirect your action in some ways. So the other component of all of this is that Venus and Virgo will be joining this aspect. So we'll have Venus opposite Saturn, Venus making a square to Mars and Jupiter. So this creates a T-square because it's Venus at the top, Saturn at the bottom, and then Mars and Jupiter over here. It creates like a T sort of shape. And this is a very dynamic aspect in that T-square, squares, oppositions, they usually symbolize a time where something propels us into action or into choice. There's usually a certain level of discomfort or agitation, or kind of feeling like we need to do something about something. And it doesn't have to feel unpleasant. Sometimes it feels very motivating. And I think it really depends on where you're at and what's happening in your life, as far as feeling like, as far as feeling how you're doing within this creation process of creating and experiencing the life that you want to experience in general. And I'm saying that because Jupiter and Saturn are more about our long-term goals and experiences. And so I think that there can be this moment or periods this week and even in the coming months around questioning your commitments and your responsibilities, and is this how you want to spend your time? And I think that Mars can point to where there might be something that is unsettling or frustrating here. And sometimes there is, especially with Saturn, there is a level of acceptance or sacrifice to this, but it's so important that it's a choice, that you decide as best you can, as best as you are able to, that you choose your situations. And so I think this here, Mars is like, okay, like, what do I want to do about this? And then the Venus in Virgo brings in the values system and the relational component of this. So it brings relationships into this experience of how you're growing and progressing, and how you are experiencing responsibility in your relationships and in your commitments. So there's questions here around how you can be connected to others while still maintaining your connection to yourself. That may be a big theme this week. So I really feel also with Venus opposite Saturn, there can be this looking at how as we get closer to other people, it sometimes becomes more difficult to stay close, to stay within our own integrity. And I really think about the Lover's card when I think in Tarot, when I think about this, because the closer that we get with someone, usually that person becomes more important to us. And so it's sort of a paradox because we don't want to lose that other person. And so we're more likely, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, when we're more close to someone, we become more likely to abandon ourselves in small ways in order to protect that relationship. And so I think the astrology this week is really speaking to navigating that process of maintaining connection, but then also not abandoning yourself and not abandoning your integrity and your principles. And that can be in very minor ways as well. That can be in very subtle ways that we act and that we communicate. And so let's see, what else do I want to say about that? So I realize that may sound like a lot, but I want you to just notice what is coming up as I'm talking about this and what feels like it might be, what in your life feels like there might be a potential for something coming up here around navigating your actions and how you connect with others and how you connect with responsibility and creation in your life. Now, we're also still in a very contemplative sort of period because we are within the Mercury retrograde process. So Mercury retrograde happens about 3 or 4 times a year, 3 weeks at a time. So we're constantly going into this more contemplative sort of time. Mercury stationed retrograde on August 4th. It will be retrograde until August 28th. And this week in particular, Mercury moves from Virgo into Leo on Wednesday the 14th. And so we're shifting from the section of this Mercury retrograde process that is more focused on Virgo matters of rituals and routines and healing and how processes and intentionality and purposefulness bring something to life, and more of a contemplation around Leo issues, which are about self-expression, authenticity. And this is where also this really dovetails in with not abandoning the self and how to be who it is that you are from a place of spontaneous expression versus trying to be a parody of what you think that someone may want, or masking in a way that doesn't feel quite right. And again, like this can be something that's very subtle. So Mercury moves into Leo this week on Wednesday, and then it will make its conjunction with the Sun, which is called Cazimi. So this Mercury Cazimi conjunction with the Sun happens every single Mercury retrograde. So it is part of the process, and it happens at the midpoint of the retrograde process. It happens to sort of mark that halfway point. And traditionally, this is connected. Mercury's Cazimi is connected with a strengthening of Mercury, a purification, an integration, a renewal. There's an element of wholeness to this that comes in here. And I think that sometimes thinking about it as purification can be a little problematic because this gets us into ideas of perfection and wanting to attain something that is not entirely practical, and because we're always in a process of becoming. And so I like to sort of more think of this as Mercury's Cazimi being where it goes into the depths of its retrograde process, like it's the maximum introspective experience. And then there is something in there that we gain. There is some sort of insight or aha, or there's like a psychological integration that happens because we are talking about Mercury, the mind, the conscious mind, and the part of the mind that connects things psychologically, because Mercury is about transitions and messages and crossing thresholds. So Mercury is the message bearer. And then the sun, which is a symbol of the ego and conscious awareness and the part of the self that says, I am this, this is who I am, this is me, the unique individual identity. And so when these two come together, there is this sense of things integrating or coming together or clicking. And sometimes it is a literal aha moment that you may experience, and sometimes it's more in the background, a subtle sense of psychological cohesion. And so again, this is really cool because we get to experience this several times a year, where there is this integration that happens. And in this case, it is around Leo issues, Leo themes, which is about spontaneous self-expression, the innate desire for affection, attention, being seen, being loved and appreciated for who you are, and then being able to be more generous and spontaneous when you receive that feedback. And so this is a big theme this week. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, okay. Also, I wanted to say a major component of the Mercury Cazimi is that because Mercury is so close to the sun, we cannot see it. So it is invisible to our eye until many weeks from now. It gets a little distance, and then we'll be able to see it in the night sky. So there's this element of invisibility or unseenness, or psychologically, this is like, it's sort of a paradox because there is this renewal and integration, but we can't quite see it just yet. So things are happening in the background, and I want you to know this because there's this element of trusting that things are falling into place and that you don't always have to understand everything intellectually in order to know that something is happening. And if you've ever, maybe you've had that experience, if you have ever gone on a healing process or done meditation or learned an instrument or how to surf or how to ride a bike or anything like that. Like sometimes these things, it's like you are able to move forward and progress on something even when your thinking mind doesn't fully grasp exactly what is going on. Sometimes there's something that's happening and you don't have to be in control of that process. Now, another piece of this Mercury experience that we have this week is Mercury, once it's in Leo, will make a square to Uranus. And this also emphasizes this new insights, new awarenesses. Uranus is really about reinventing a structure that has been outdated in some way, or reinventing a pattern, or changing something, or going outside of what the status quo is, or outside of your norm, your normal way of operating. So there is a lot of symbolism here around innovation, rethinking social conventions, social justice issues, divergences, neurodivergence, or just diverging in any way from what is typical. And there's this thing this week too around insights, Mercury Sun, that will help you break free from something that is outdated, Uranus. And that can be breaking free from something that is internally imposed or something that is externally imposed on you. So I think that there's really a lot that's happening here around ideas and insights. And of course, whenever we're talking about Mercury retrograde, we know that things are in flux and that there's a lot of ideas and info that's being received, and that we may not have the capacity or time or opportunity to lay everything out and to actually do something about that right now. Now, this week, again, we have all of that Mars-Jupiter situation going on, so I don't know. But there is something here around really, as we move towards the full moon next week, there's something to be said around letting things stew and simmer and notice what is coming to you and what is unfolding. Now, let's see. As far as the lunar cycle, and then we'll move on to the tarot. So as far as the lunar cycle, we had our new moon. Wait, let's see. Is that right? Yeah, we had our new moon. So we're within that Leo lunar cycle. And we'll have our first quarter moon in Scorpio on Monday, the 12th of August. And so the first quarter moon is this emotional feeling of wanting to commit yourself, wanting to really move into something, or wanting to change directions. There can kind of be an element of prioritizing your energy and figuring out where you want to go and what you want to focus on. Now, when this is in the sign of Scorpio, there's an intensity to this process. And so I think this really amps up and supports the other transits that we've been talking about. And so I think this week, especially, your emotional energy is very potent and powerful. And, like always, where you put your focus has an effect on your life. And so I would say, this is something that comes up especially this week with the first quarter moon. And then we're building towards the full moon in Aquarius on Monday the 19th, so Monday next week. And we'll talk more about that next week. But there's always, when we're in this part of the lunar cycle, it's the waxing moon, the moon is growing, it is appearing larger and larger in the sky. And so this also shows that there is a growth of insight and new information, and we're in the growth part of the monthly lunar cycle in general. And so I think there's a lot that's cooking, there's a lot that's sort of coming into being. And I think that there's this sort of, it's kind of this combo of renewal and integration, but there's also this feeling of going through something or getting over something, or there might be confronting of an agitation or confronting a frustration, and then once you do that, there is something that clicks or something that changes. And this may be something that you feel called or inspired to do directly, or it may be something that simply happens at an inner level. So I think especially this week, always, but especially this week, you don't always have to figure out like what to do. And I say this to you as well as to myself, that, sometimes we're like, okay, I'm going to figure out like what I need to do and what the astrology says that I should do. And sometimes that is helpful and appropriate and empowering. And sometimes that sort of can, that desire to impose our will onto a situation can sometimes have a paradoxical, distractive sort of effect, and where we're trying to kind of force something that isn't quite ready to fruit yet. And so, yeah, I would just notice what feels organic to you, and that there's no rush. And I think that when you are listening to yourself and watching for feedback, the feedback that you receive externally through omens or synchronicity, that you'll get a read on what is right now, and that may change, and of course it will change, and that's okay, but right now is all that you need to focus on. Okay, so I am gonna pull some tarot cards for you. And as always, this is a space for you to connect in with yourself, connect in with your experience of the divine, of your ancestors, your spiritual guidance team, or that simply that sense of wiseness within yourself. You can find yourself in a comfortable position or a movement that feels really pleasant to you, that helps you connect into your body and your experience of this moment. And notice what you notice here. Notice how your body feels, what senses are really alive for you right now or not. If you can find a place to settle in yourself, that may be the heart or the belly or the pelvis, a place of centered anchoredness. And from here, in this place, maybe a quandary, a question, or a situation arises softly in your awareness. And we'll read these cards as a full set for you, and then you can also choose a number between 1 and 3 to signify a card that is special or significant to you. Okay. All right. These are some big cards here. So the first card is the Chaos card. So this deck is called the Tarot of Spells and Potions, and this is one of the bonus cards in it. And in this card, it's so interesting because this card doesn't feel chaotic to me. It feels actually quite elegant and graceful. So in the card, there's this figure, this person who is wearing like a pinky, muted, dusty rose sort of dress. And it's very like flouncy. It's a long dress. And they have some sort of headdress on that looks like a veil. And it actually, so the veil has what looks like from the High Priestess, where there's sort of like the half goddess symbol with the little horns on it. And the veil is this blue color. And this person is sort of just swirling around, and they're sort of looking back in a mischievous kind of way. And as I'm looking at this card, they sort of look like they're about to move through a portal of some sort. And they're kind of like, all right, bye, I'm going to go on a little adventure to another world. And I think that the chaos is speaking to going into the unknown. This card to me feels like a mixture of the Fool and the High Priestess, and that there's this new adventure or new journey, and that there is an intuitive awareness about this, that there's a sense of following something, and that there is a sacred part of this, a sacred component to this journey. And so I'm going to read from the book here. Chaos means learn to be calm in times of chaos, and you can overcome any difficulties. Your strength is in your calmness. The universe will put things in order on its own. it knows how best. Okay, so yeah, so this card is really about trusting, and so interesting that I pulled this because it's very like this theme of you don't have to figure it out, that you just need to focus on. In this case, I feel like this card is saying the most important thing is connecting to your calm. And that is complicated sometimes. And that's going to look different ways for different people. And so I don't think calm has to mean like all, zen and chill and spaced out and inactive. In fact, like this card, there's quite a bit of action. But this person to me appears to be very aware, alert, and regulated. Like they are fully present, and they are moving in a way that is embodied. And so there's something here around finding calm in the chaos and knowing that you can get through this, that you will be okay, that it will be okay. And I think it's so important to say also that this is tough because sometimes there are situations where it is not okay at varying different levels. And so there's something here around trusting that even if it's not okay, that there is some inherent goodness here, that there is something that you can hang on to. And if anything, that is your experience, and that is your ability to connect in with something within yourself. Now we may go back to that in a moment. The second card is the Death card. So the Death card in Tarot is about transformation. It is hardcore about renewal. It's about something being reborn. It is a very spiritual card in the deck, and I think that a lot of times there's a negative connotation around the Death card because of the name. And I think that it's a misunderstanding because in our westernized culture, and many cultures I imagine, there is this fear of transition, of change, and of endings. We have encoded into us a fear of death. And so this card speaks to the nature of endings that are beginnings, and the transitional nature and the unknown in that process, that can be very scary. I think it's really interesting because in this card there's it sort of almost looks like a little nursery, and there's this little young person, and then behind them there's a veiled person that they don't really look menacing or joyful. They sort of look neutral. And the little person is holding this sort of balloon, and there's all of these like mobile things with like stuff hanging down. And so this card is a reminder that where there is loss, there is hope. Where there is an ending, there is a beginning. And I think this really connects into the chaos card, that even if something is difficult or chaotic, I think, okay, actually, let me just say this. All of the words want to come out at once. So the way that I'm seeing this, there is a transformation this week. That is clear. And it might feel a little chaotic, as many transformations do. And that you are moving into this process. I think really the chaos card, with her moving into what appears to be a portal to another world, this is something that you're moving into, and then that transformation happens fairly quickly. And that this is a rebirth, a renewal, this really feels connected to the Mercury Cazimi here, that there is something new that is being born. There's something that is psychologically dying or falling away. And when that happens psychologically, and that what that can look like is that we realize something, or we don't feel connected to something in the same kind of way. And sometimes that is a bit sad, but that also allows for new growth to happen. That allows for that transformation. The third card is the Ten of Cups. And so I really like this because this is at the end of the transformation. And so the Ten of Cups is a culmination card. It's the card of celebration and things coming together, having all of your needs met, like really this abundant emotional experience. And so when we get the Ten of Cups as the last card here, there is this culmination around this whole journey that's happening. And so, okay, I'm going to take that as an omen. So there might be a surprise or something that happens that might come out of nowhere. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that this is life. Like, this is everything. That there is this, there's chaos, there's loss and renewal and hope, and then there is something new that comes out of that. And in the Ten of Cups, this person is sitting with sort of like a wall of cups behind them, and they have one cup that's like very close to them and very dear to them, and they're sort of this like totally chill. I mean, the Ten of Cups is also, to me, about an abundance of resources too. And so I think that there's something here about this transformation that opens up additional resources. And I'm even thinking about how psychologically, when we do have something that shifts on the inside, sometimes we have access to a greater level of feeling and experience. And sometimes that's highs and lows, but oftentimes that's being able to feel more connected to ourselves and to others. All right, that is your forecast for the week. I hope that you enjoyed this. I am wishing you a most easeful and enjoyable week. And my name is Shawna McGrath. As always, if you want to find out more about me and my work, you can find me on my website, theastropsyche.com. I'll see you soon. Bye.